There we go. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this week's virtual plant clinic. My name is Bill Lester. I'm with University of Florida Extension Service in Hernando County, and sitting right behind me, there we go, live, is my regular co-host, Lily Browning. Hey, I can see you in the camera doing that. Good morning, Lily. How are you?
I'm good, Bill. How are you? It's good to see you.
Yes, finally. I've been gone for a while, but I'm back. I've been around. And this morning we have a very, very special guest here. Jeremy Rhoden is with University of Florida Extension up in Marion County, up in Ocala.
TJ, if you're listening, here's your agent.
Yes, here's the person you're going to contact with the really, really difficult questions up there in Marion County. Or your second choice is Lily, and then if worse comes to worse, you can email me. But Jeremy's the new urban horticulture agent and master gardener coordinator up there in Marion County. We have long titles. It's easy to get confused, so.
We do.
Buddy's with us.
Okay. We have Buddy, who lives up in the Panhandle with us this morning, and Buddy's a regular viewer.
He was with us in yesterday's class, too, about gardening mythology.
And Cindy's on here from Pinellas County. So you're going to see that with this virtual plant clinic, we have a lot of really regular viewers, people that tune in just about every week to either ask questions or see the kind of questions everybody else is asking and get answers to them and learn something. But
see, there we go. There's PJ. Jeremy, you're gonna have to get to know PJ from the Bellevue area because she has lots of questions.
So you even have somebody from Marion County on here, but we have regulars from Broward County, South Florida. We've had people from Georgia.
Monique, I believe, is right here in Hernando.
I think so. Monique from Hernando County. Who was the gentleman from Michigan that was tuning in for a while?
That was Wisconsin.
Wisconsin. Oh, I'm sorry. Wisconsin, Michigan, way up north.
Aaron? Was that his name?
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
So we've had people viewing and joining in from really all over the country. I don't think we've had anybody from out of the country. Maybe.
Sure. Yep, downtown Brooksville for Monique. Okay, and Cody listens from northern Pasco, like in the country areas. He might be showing up at some point.
So we have a wide variety of viewers and listeners. And of course, if you guys have any questions at all, just go ahead and throw it in the comments section, and we'll make Jeremy answer the really hard ones.
And there's Corey, and he drove through Marion County once. I attended the College of Central Florida, so I think I know Marion County certainly much better than I know like Tampa or anything. And I had a daughter who now lives in Pennsylvania, but for quite a while she lived in Marion Oaks, so that's near the Bellevue area.
And I've been driving back down I-75, and if there's a really bad wreck and traffic is stopped, I've just gotten off in Marion County. If you
take 200.
Yeah. If you head west and keep heading west, you're going to hit 19 eventually.
Well, I take 200 to 491 going through Beverly Hills and all that too.
I just head west. It all depends on where you have to get off. And between that and GPS, I've always found my way home one way or the other.
Well, yes, I know where your extension office is on Jacksonville Road.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
I'll be there in a couple weeks for the Central District Symposium, as well.
It'll be great to see you.
Yeah, you
got a great event.
Very nice campus. You've got the livestock pavilion right there by you. So you got lots of room to do fun things. And we were discussing before we went live that they had their annual spring festival last Saturday, when unfortunately tornadoes decided to rip through the Ocala area.
Yes, it was so successful, but we stayed safe. We stayed safe.
Good. I think we had a little tornado spin up around Weeki Wachee. Teresa said there were some trees down in her neighborhood. So
yeah. All down Mariner, it looked like a little tiny twister went through. And there's a road here closer to Brooksville that anyone in Brooksville is familiar with. It's Fort Dade Avenue, and it's one of those tree canopy, beautiful roads. And in my well-traveled career with the county, I spent a few years at the Department of Public Works. So there's this one tree in a person's yard that we were very familiar with because chunks of it would come down. And finally, I saw Saturday that the whole thing came down, amazingly not on the people's house, but across the side road, not even across Fort Dade. So
that's a good reminder that even before hurricane season, when we're outside of hurricane season, if you have large trees on your property, it's a responsibility, and you're going to have an arborist come out and look at them. I mean, not all the time, but I would think every year or two, and they do require pruning and trimming, removing the dead branches, safety checkup, because you don't want to find out your huge oak tree is unsafe and unstable during a storm in the middle of March, when you're not really expecting hurricanes and tropical storms and things like that.
I just, I think it was Tuesday, watched a educational program presented by Florida Friendly Landscaping in Gainesville, but they had Jamie Lynn.
Yes, you're going to get to know Jamie Lynn Doherty from Lake County Extension, and I'm her mentor also.
Yeah.
So,
well, she did a fantastic program on pruning trees and palms, and I try to watch as many of those as possible because I feel like sometimes I forget it, that particular subject, as soon as, I walk away from it. So I have to remind myself a lot, but that should be available. They said within a few weeks, a recording of it. If I find it, I'll put it on my Facebook page, but I think you've had her teach with you too, haven't you?
Yeah. We do at the beginning of hurricane season, the traditional preparing for hurricanes and preparing your landscape, your trees, contacting an arborist to come out and physically look at the tree to make sure it's safe.
She had great samples of just, stripped trees, branches, whatever look like, dry wood or whatever. And that really showed the tissue, which direction the tissue is going, that creates the branch collar, and then the tissue from the branch, and how you can really see, the reason why they tell you to prune the way they do, because of the way the tissue grows. And it was very informative, I think.
Okay, we got people tuning in today from all over the place, and I've shown a few. We have Joelle, also from Pinellas County. Good morning, Joelle. Lee is from Broward County. She's from down in South Florida, and has asked questions about coconut palms and tropical fruits, and she's got everything growing in her yard.
She challenges us every week with her tropical fruit questions. And but she did have to deal with some freezes even that far south recently. Oh, we saw, last week when you weren't here, but she had emailed you pictures of her yard.
Yeah.
Gorgeous yard. And I was trying to make plans that everyone on the virtual plant clinic was going to go to her house for a field trip and for lunch. So
you should just go on a road trip down to South Florida, and
maybe when gas prices get lower again.
So we got a question or two on here. So PJ asked, are Lubber grasshoppers native to Florida? Yes. They're not invasive. They're native. And they're hatching now. Depending on where you live, here in Hernando County, they hatch between March 1st and March 15th. The further north you go, they're going to hatch a little bit later, a little bit later, a little bit later.
We just discussed those yesterday. If you go back on my Facebook page and on Bill's, you'll see the class we did yesterday about Florida gardening mythology. And, one of the myths is that those lubbers will eat everything in your yard. Now, if you have bulbs, crinum lilies, amaryllis, daylilies, then you have a concern. But otherwise, they're not going to just go and devour your entire landscape. So,
Jeremy, have you gotten questions about Lubber grasshoppers yet?
Not yet. No. I expect to, but I actually have not seen any this season yet, and I'm sure it's right around the corner. But
yeah.
You're probably a little bit behind us, and here we've already gotten a few questions about tussock moth caterpillars. They're the little furry caterpillars that are in your oak trees. Haven't gotten any jadera questions yet. They're the bugs that if you have a golden rain tree, they'll eat the seeds off the golden rain tree, and you may end up with millions of them in your yard, like the wall of your garage covered. People flip out. People just get terrified when they see that many insects. So don't worry, you're going to get all of them. Seasonal.
Right.
There was a young golden rain tree, well, two, at my church, and one pretty much died. So it just kind of disappeared one day. And recently, the one that hasn't died, even though it was young, it's just gone. I don't know what happened to it. It just disappeared because it's an invasive exotic, and I should be replaced with something more Florida friendly anytime now. I just don't know how that happens. PJ.
PJ watched webinar from Brooke, who is with Lake County Extension. And yeah, when you see the lubbers first hatch, when they're really small, that's the best time of year to control them.
You can kill them. We were just saying don't panic too much about them. And when they're young, they're little and black with a yellow or a red stripe on them. And they are, what's the word you said yesterday?
Gregarious.
They're gregarious.
When they first hatch, they hang out in a big group together like little friends. They're very gregarious.
Yes. They're having their happy party. So that is when you can take them all with your hand and push them into a bucket of soapy water. As they get older, they become more introverted and more loners, and they become, and I'm not exaggerating about, how big they can be. And they wear a suit of armor. So then, a pesticide is not going to work on them. Your car might.
But when it comes to lubber grasshoppers, they do technically feed on a wide variety of different plants. They can cause a lot of damage on, like Lily said, amaryllis bulbs, crinum lily bulbs, anything else in that family. Young citrus trees, they're a pest of. Every year I will find a bunch of them in my lawn. They don't eat turf grass. I'm not going to waste my time or effort doing anything to them. I have them on a holly hedge out front, American holly, and there are always some on it all the way from this time of year up till the end of summer. I've never seen them eat the holly. So there's a lot of plants that just because you see an insect sitting on a plant doesn't necessarily mean it's damaging the plant. And a lot of times people make the mistake of, and I had a lady call me once before. She walked out in her front yard one morning and looked and saw her Bahia lawn looked bad. It looked, I'm not going to say the word she used, but it looked not good. And she thought, why does my lawn look so bad? She looked around and she saw a lubber grasshopper on her viburnum hedge. So she called me and she said, what do I do to control those great big grasshoppers that are killing my lawn? I said, ma'am, those grasshoppers aren't killing your lawn. Something is probably killing your lawn or you're doing something wrong. I don't, doubt that. It's not the grasshoppers, though. It's something else. You're cutting it too short. You're watering it too much, too little, whatever it might be. We can figure out what's wrong with your lawn, but it ain't the grasshoppers that's causing your problem. So you can't, if you blame every problem on the grasshoppers, you're probably missing the core reason behind a lot of different problems in your yard. And you're going to spend all your time chasing grasshoppers when you should be doing other things to fix your hibiscus, your lawn, your palm tree, whatever it might be.
And if Brooke is from Lake County, there's two people, at one time it would have been a lot of citrus groves, and they have something to be concerned about. But also most of her county is the villages, and they are less tolerant in the villages of any kind of plants with little bites taken out of them. So she's probably trying to keep them ahead of staying in trouble.
Yeah, PJ said that this presentation was from somebody at a nursery, so
okay, wasn't her then.
I don't know how good their
and the nursery
information is.
could have a lot of bulbs in it too. Yeah. Mo, you're
Boy, we're having a lot of. This is great. We have a lot of engagement here today. A lot of people making posts, and I've noticed that our internet is a little weak at moments. So if for some reason we flicker or whatever, we've had a lot of internet problems here at the office recently, and it gets even worse when people drive over our cable box out by the road. So if that happens, I will disappear. Just warning you right now.
You should put up a barricade. Filming in progress. So Pete, yeah.
Yeah. So Corey points out that the Lubber Grasshoppers are going to be the biggest problem on bulbs because they eat the whole thing.
Monique has pointed out that the adults, you'll find 2 of them together at certain times. We'll just leave it. We'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, PJ's learned from us already that they should always talk to UF-IFAS. So,
and
so Jeremy,
now you're meeting your guy today.
Yeah.
Afternoon. Go over Jacksonville Road. And
I'll be looking for the phone call or the video.
Yeah, and Carol says that she's seen them hanging out on our muley grass. They don't eat it.
Yeah, you're right. They do like it. Something about muley grass they like. Maybe because they can hide in there. Something. Now, do birds like to eat them? I have not seen them.
Oh, PJ says that lubbers are not native. They are native. They're native to the eastern U.S. It's not an invasive. And I'll double check on that. But no, lubber grasshoppers are not controlled or dealt with as an invasive pest.
Yeah. We'll have to check that. That's why I looked at you when the question came up, because I'm like, I have no idea.
But yeah, PJ, if you can shoot me an email and send a link to the talk, I'd be interested. I'm always interested in seeing what kind of advice other people are giving, because sometimes it's not that good. Jeremy, have you ever noticed on Facebook gardening groups that sometimes you see some pretty wacky stuff?
Well,
many times. Yes, many times.
Then the neighborhood groups who people start asking for gardening questions to just the neighborhood groups, and whoa, the stuff they can come up with.
Oh yeah, and it's what I've found in Marion County too. At least 2 or 3 times since I've been there. I started January 31st, so I've not been there too long. But just since I have been there, we've had several people come in and tell us things like, "Well, this particular plant can't grow in Florida." And I said, "What makes you think that?" "Well, I saw it on this Facebook group. Everybody says it can't grow in Florida." Hydrangeas, for example. And so like it's really based on many factors, but I mean it's certainly possible. It happens all the time. It's but yes, so that
hydrangea, if you're trying to have French hydrangeas and have them be blue, that's probably not going to work here. So
right, like I spoke with them about oak leaf hydrangeas and different samples of things, and never even heard of it. But it's certainly interesting what I hear from people, what they find on social media, even the groups I follow on Facebook. I learned a while ago, even before I was an agent, sometimes it's better just to watch the comments as opposed to getting involved in them, because some people are certainly, they believe what they believe. So
yes, and of course, only with our own sites are we going to answer with the reader group based information, because no, we can't engage in those type of sites.
Right. But what's great is you do have a lot of people on there. I've noticed, especially more and more lately, like there are people who are posting Ask the Gardener, or Ask IFAS or EDIS documents on there, it's really good. I mean, so we know there's certainly people out there who are going to UF-IFAS and asking what works well here. So.
And we don't mind if master gardeners engage and give them proper information.
Right.
Or at least point them in the right direction. He's looking to find out if they're native or not.
The eastern lubber grasshopper is native to Florida. Southeast U.S. Yeah. So,
and that is a University of Florida blog. He was just getting that information from.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, they are native.
Yeah, it's all throughout Florida, as far west as into Texas, as far north as into North Carolina. It's all of Georgia has it. half of, is that Alabama or Mississippi?
Where? Louisiana.
Yeah, so it's all around the Gulf Coast states. Yeah. So it is native.
That's Alabama and then the southern portion of Mississippi.
Yeah, it's a native insect.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see what other kind of questions we have here.
They're very talkative today.
Okay, Corey says he has seed trays of Chapman's liatris.
Yeah, liatris.
Liatris, okay. Coastal plain honeycomb head.
Just call them all
and Florida paintbrush.
Oh, I know the Florida paintbrush. Okay.
Okay. I also have boring peppers and tomatoes coming up that need to be transplanted soon and then put out in the garden very soon.
The liatris, the natural ones are blooming now, or should be very soon. Not quite yet, maybe in another month or so. Oh, they said they're, oh, you just changed people on me.
Sure. No, I'm moving through here.
Okay. Yeah, the liatris, I think they're gorgeous. They call them Blazing Star. And the paintbrush, Blazing Star has, you know, like just like one thin tubular kind of flower. The paintbrush then it's more umbular at the top, you know, and it has the light purple. It's gorgeous. It grows naturally in the undeveloped areas around my house, which are decreasing and decreasing and decreasing.
So Jeremy, we got a question here from Bassam, who said that people told him he could not grow asparagus in Central Florida, but he's growing it successfully. What can you tell us about growing asparagus?
I have not grown asparagus. However, I think it goes back to one of those things. You know, what I often tell home gardeners and residential gardeners is just, you know, a lot of times it's easier for us to be able to grow things because it's a lower quantity of what we're growing versus a farmer who's growing asparagus in Florida is probably not going to have a lot of success compared to other crops that he can be growing. So, and I think sometimes people get that confused when they say, oh, well, asparagus can't really be grown in Florida. It's not that it necessarily can't be grown in Florida. If we can provide the right conditions, especially depending on the type of system we're using. I do a lot with hydroponics, though I have not grown asparagus hydroponically. In indoor growing or in ag protective structures, we certainly can grow. But, you know, like on a large scale farm, you're not going to see asparagus in Florida growing. But yes, I do think that it can successfully be grown in Florida, especially if you're using or doing small amounts of it. Even if you're doing larger amounts in a larger garden, I mean, if you have the time to make sure that the environment's good and your soil's good and everything else that it needs, I mean, you certainly can make it successful.
Yeah, I know it's difficult here in Florida. And the further north in Florida you are, the better it's going to grow. Mm-hmm. It's something that grows very, very well up north. But it's definitely probably worth a try in your yard. And I have seen people, and I've seen pictures online of people who've grown it successfully.
Mm-hmm.
Teresa's.
And the other great thing is there's so many, especially I'm finding that there are a lot of seed companies coming out with more and more varieties that can do better, like not just asparagus, but all sorts of different crops that we used to not be able to grow so well here in Florida that we're starting to see that we are able to do so.
Mm-hmm. Austin is our Wisconsin gentleman.
Yes. See, Austin is joining us today and from somewhere in Wisconsin. So he planted Dusty Millers up there. Hopefully it's warming up there a little bit. I don't know. I haven't seen the national temperatures. Past weekend, it was cold everywhere.
It's going up and down here. But I think that's why the asparagus might be doing so well because of the cold snaps that we did have. Maybe if we had a winter that never got cold at all, you know, you wouldn't be doing so well. But like Jeremy said, you know, to say it doesn't grow here, it's not a marketable product to grow here.
Mm-hmm.
A homeowner who wants to spend a lot of time at it and experiment at it, sure, why not try it?
And Sheila with Volusia County Extension is on here this morning watching us. Good morning, Sheila. How are you? If you have any questions, just go ahead and put them on, and I'll make these guys answer the really hard ones. Because that's how we do it here.
Volusia has, you know, if you have any kind of like questions about salt tolerance or anything like that, we'll send them to Sheila.
Okay, PJ in Marion County, so she's one of your clientele, has a question: what plants and shrubs and trees can I plant to create a microenvironment to protect my more tender Bougainvillea, crinum lilies, and to protect them from grasshoppers? And I could tell you there's nothing that you can plant that's going to protect you from grasshoppers.
Yeah, I would agree with that too. I mean, to my knowledge, I don't really know of anything that would help in protecting it from grasshoppers.
You just have to keep after the grasshoppers when you see them. And that bucket of soapy water does, you know, it doesn't harm anything.
Yeah, bucket of soapy water as soon as they hatch. So this time of year, you need to be out there checking. And you'll go out there one day and you'll just see all these oh my gosh, where did all these grasshoppers come from? They just hatched.
No,
so
they're
taking care of them early is much better. And I'll get questions and I'll see things on Facebook in August. The picture of a full-grown lubber grasshopper. What do I do to get rid of these guys? Nothing. Even be
mechanical control. However you figure that out, one of our master gardeners took care of them as she was pruning. That's all I'm going to say there.
I throw them over the fence into the neighbor's yard. So
the tender bougainvillea for Marion County, PJ has a fairly vegetative filled backyard. So I think, you know, so she has a microclimate that probably protects a lot of those tender plants. And bougainvillea usually comes back even after it's been frozen here. I would say we can push the southern limits of plants a little more than we used to. Like here, we know we've seen you can grow bougainvillea that takes over the world, but
yeah.
So up there, you know, if it gets too big, it's going to be very, very hard. But if it's in a microclimate where you have fence and trees in your house, probably just get bit, you know, on the edges, and we'll come back.
Yeah, and 2 little bits of advice for putting plants in a slightly warmer spot. Anything that's growing underneath trees, especially large oak trees, the tree keeps it a little bit warmer on a cold night, creates a blanket, but
it's shade.
It's shade.
Yeah.
So the plant may not do well there if it's wants a lot of sun, but it's way too shady. So that's kind of a mixed bag.
Her crinum lilies are great there.
Yeah, and some things, if you tuck it up close to your house, it stays a little bit warmer. Anything planted along a south-facing wall in the winter, that wall stays warm. On a sunny day, it gets hot. On a cold night, it's giving off the heat and keeps things a bit warmer. I've noticed a lot of, what are the palms, the little 3? Robolini palms. Everybody here in Hernando County that has a Robolini palm that's tucked up close to your house doesn't get a whole lot of damage during the winter when it gets really cold.
I see a whole lot of brown ones right now, though.
All my neighbors that have a Robolini out in a flower bed in the center of the front yard where it gets a lot of cold on a cold night, totally brown, and sometimes they die. So do you have Robolinis? A lot of Robolinis up there in Marion?
Not to my knowledge.
You're a little bit colder. People probably lose them on a regular basis during the winter.
They love to put them like in fast food places around the drive-through because, you know, they're skinny garden areas. And so this is a little plant that fits, but I swear I've seen them frozen more often than not frozen.
Yeah, I don't recall. I can't think of anywhere where we may have seen any, but now I'm going to have to be looking for them as I go out everywhere.
They were really popular with home builders because it's the little palms that you get 3 of them. And it's not a palm that makes 3 stalks. At the nursery, when they grow them, they'll take 3 of them, jam them together, and stick them in a pot. and they fuse, they turn into a 3-trunk palm.
Yes.
And then over time, one will die. Got to cut it back and it leaves an ugly stump. Second one dies, you have to do the same thing. So
probably in South Florida.
I was going to say, I will say there is certainly someone in my neighborhood that has them planted right on the sides of their garage, which is right by their sidewalk also. And now they're grown and overgrown and, growing into the sidewalk area. So I'm not sure if that was a developer planting or somebody did that earlier on. That was before I was in this neighborhood, but I have certainly seen them at that house. So
that could be. I've seen them in South Florida. They get huge. They get huge down there because they're a South Florida warm weather kind of palm. So you're probably just a little bit too far north for them to do reliably well.
Yeah.
One day they're going to get frozen. And I've seen, because there's a whole lot of building. I live pretty much in a construction zone now. So they've found in my neighborhood and decided to build all around it. And so they give everybody a baby queen palm. And
I got one. One came with the house.
Right. So an adult queen palm, if it's made it through some winters, they're okay. But every one of those baby queens, they're all brown. And I'm like, oh, yeah, you've lost your queen palm. They're not really for zone 9A. Or what are you? You're 8B up there?
Where we're in Marion?
Yeah.
No, I think we're 9A also.
Okay.
Where we're based.
Same zone, but there's a lot of plants where just a little bit further north or south or closer to the Gulf of Mexico or the Atlantic Ocean makes a world of difference. But we got a question from Bonnie about fertilizers.
Yeah, 9A.
And she's looking for some information for fertilizing because she's frightened to fertilize because she's killed a few plants using the wrong stuff.
You won't kill them by not fertilizing. I can promise you that.
And Bonnie, if you want to put in what kind of plants you're asking about, because different plants need different fertilizers, different amounts of fertilizer. Some plants are really fussy with the fertilizer. Some demand it. Other things you don't have to fertilize. So it really depends on whether it's a Bahia lawn or an oak tree or a palm tree or a hibiscus or whatever it might be.
Speaking of hibiscus.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you think mine will come back? They were very young. I planted them last summer, and they're, pretty dead looking. What do you think their chances are?
Well, I don't know. How well do you care for them over there? I don't know what you would do to your plants.
I planted them in the ground, and they got frozen. That's all that's happened to them so far.
You need to wait. You really need to wait here in Hernando County at least another month to tell for sure whether it's going to come back or not. A month from now, if it's still brown, there's no green, nothing growing out of it, the plant in question is most likely perished and it's not going to come back.
Because a lot of my natives are already coming back. Like the firebush comes back from the ground. I think the hibiscus will do that too, but I just got to keep an eye on it. So.
Oh yeah, our firebush is frozen all the way, but that we have in front of the building
I saw
here.
That. I walked by.
Frozen down to the ground, except for a lot of new growth down at the very, very bottom. Right. So it's going to come back in, like a month. Those things grow like a weed.
It's taller than, but all dead looking, except for inside the middle. Coming. So, this is March 17th. Should we?
Yes, happy St. Patrick's Day.
Should we prune? Is it okay to prune?
Yeah. I was telling people a few weeks ago you could prune because that last cold front really surprised me.
That's the last week we had your new master gardener, Ellen, visiting with us. Mm-hmm. And she came from Colorado.
Colorado, yeah.
And she was saying that there they used to tell everyone without a doubt, no more danger of frost or freeze after Mother's Day. That was their time. Go ahead and prune after Mother's Day. Meanwhile, at the same time, in Hernando, we would tell people March 15th, you're safe after March 15th. Well, what happened in Colorado is they started having freezes at the beginning of June, and we started having freezes at the beginning of April. So, there are changes going on. So you can prune now. You're going to want to. I know you're going to. But just know you're taking the chance that we could possibly have another freeze. We just had one this weekend, which wasn't that bad. I didn't do anything to any plants that I noticed. I have crepe myrtle popping out, and even the very tiny edge leaves got frozen, and that's it. So,
okay, we got a couple questions on here. So this link that I'm showing on the screen, if you go to edis.ifas.ufl.edu, kind of a long name, but if you just go to UF space EDIS, EDIS, you're going to find the University of Florida database that has information on fertilizing whatever you may be fertilizing. If it's a hibiscus you're fertilizing, lawn fertilization, palm trees, citrus, all the information you need is going to be right there.
You should answer Teresa's question. You can't ignore Teresa.
That's what we're going up to, I think.
Okay.
Before Teresa gets angry with us, she wants to know about compost tea. What are the pros and cons? So, Lily, have you ever made compost tea?
Oh, I only tried once, and it was gross. But that doesn't mean after I did it wrong. It is something interesting to try again. I know, believe it or not, the University of Kentucky, Teresa, has a great publication on how to create compost tea. So you might want to research there. What is it? It is, of course, water with compost, and so you make this nutrient-rich drench, for your plants. I think part of my problem is I was trying to be lazy, and I was actually trying to use rain barrel water with it, and that might have been why it had the rancid smell and stuff to it. And that was years and years ago. So I'm willing to try it again, but I would do it the right way, following the University of Kentucky's advice on how to do it.
Jeremy, do you use compost tea with hydroponics, or do you use more conventional fertilizing?
So we do primarily conventional fertilizing. I have not used compost tea myself. I do know of, I recently met someone, probably, I say recently, maybe about a year ago, in Marion County, who is starting this really big business on composting, and had a lot of great things to say about compost tea. And not only from him, but I've also heard from several people that it is very effective. I have never tried it or made it myself. I have a compost bin here at my house. We have them at our office. But yeah, I've never gotten into making the tea from it. I certainly use the compost a lot, though, in my gardens, and it certainly makes a difference.
Oh, I use every last bit that I can make.
Exactly. It's really good stuff. But making the tea, I'm sure, from what I've heard, and I really wish, when I saw the question, I really wish I could think of his name, because he is starting this big compost company, essentially, in Marion County. And he talks about it like it's going to be the next Fortune 500 company, but it's not. It's really small right now, but it might be. It might be one day. Right now, it's still really small, but he's on to something. I can tell you that. He's on to something. I'll have to send his name to you, and you can share it next time on your broadcast, because he's a great resource, and he is very, very informative, and he has a lot of great resources to help people get started with it. So
we should look more into that whenever our solid waste division completes their compost program. They are going to be composting on a large scale, and it is continuously, forever, always 2 years out when they'll be completed. But you got to get permits, got to do all this. Be interesting to find, but if we take their product, then if we can seep it and make a tea out of that too.
Because you generally want to use finished compost, and you need to make it correctly. You need to aerate it, because if you just throw compost in a bucket with water, it's going to get pretty rancid. So
that's what I did.
If you do it, if you follow the directions and do it correctly, it works out well. If you don't, you might end up with something kind of nasty. But I've heard a lot of really positive things about it also.
So it should look like tea. It should look like compost, not just throwing, what you would normally put in the compost pile. It has to be composted and then seeped with the water a certain amount of time.
So Bonnie, for your question about fertilizing, I could tell you very quickly, If you have a citrus tree, you need to use proper quality citrus fertilizer. Palm trees is very, very important. You use a quality palm fertilizer because they're really fussy with their micronutrients.
Just Epsom salts won't do it.
Yeah, and then for everything else in your yard, a lot of things really don't particularly need to be fertilized. Your landscape hedges, they don't need to be fertilized. Viburnums, boxwoods, what else is there? Ligustrums, they don't need to be fertilized. Trees,
Hollies.
Yeah, hollies don't need to be fertilized. Oak trees don't need to be fertilized. Pine trees, don't fertilize them. It makes them unhappy. They get stressed. You'll get beetles.
They will hate you. And if you have a palm tree in the middle of your lawn, your palm tree does not want that high nitrogen that your lawn needs. So that becomes issues as well.
Palm trees hate turf fertilizer, but your grass, your turf, likes palm fertilizer. So keep that in mind, especially if you have a service fertilizing your lawn. Don't let them get anywhere near your palm tree. And PJ has beetles up the wazoo. That's technical.
Pretty terrible.
That's technical term for today. Not too many lubbers and only a few other varieties of things. Ibis eat the grubs.
See that we just had a picture of that. We share that in our class from yesterday. That friend of ours, who's a photographer, she sent me white ibis, munching on a yard, and said, share this because, this is a great visualization of why we should not broadcast spray pesticides everywhere. And you're right. They're going to eat those grubs. They're going to eat all your other little insects as they're traveling by. Not just them, but any other kind of birds too.
And Corey says he does not like Robolini Palms also. I have one, and it's fine. I need to prune the dead leaves off of it. It's getting kind of large. It's okay. And Care Mom 4 says good morning. Good morning. And she's tuning in through YouTube,
cool.
Which is great.
Maybe the 4 are watching with her too. And
PJ points out a good point with those Robolini palms. They have really, really big, sharp thorns.
So does your Bougainvillea, PJ. So be careful.
So does the Bougainvillea. Washingtonia palms, for anybody that has one of them, they have those huge teeth on them, and they are like razor sharp. So be careful.
That's why
wear gloves.
Them.
Technically, when you're trimming palms, you're supposed to wear a helmet. Not sure if everybody knew that.
Coconuts don't fall on your head.
Now, coconuts can be dangerous down in South Florida. I wouldn't want to. I sure hate to have my car hood hit by a coconut. That's probably why their insurance rates are higher than ours. So
that's it.
And Corey says that it has been colder in Marion County than what they actually called for.
No, he got colder.
Really depends on exactly where you live.
He's in Pasco. He's out in I'm not sure. I'd say like maybe the Darby, Dade City area. So with all those open fields and everything, you can get
yeah.
And also Marion, depending where you are, in the Ocala area is pretty densely populated. So and you have the temperature there is sometimes outrageous. I hate to go there in the summer. It's way hotter there. It's like it may be 92 here and 104. Because you are so inland. Somebody commented on one of those sites, one of those internet sites, Facebook sites, showing the damage that was done from the tornadoes last weekend. And somebody wrote, well, I'm glad we live further inland. And I kept thinking about that. I'm like, Ocala, what is it that, this way or this way? You can't possibly get further inland. It's right in the middle.
Yeah. I will say, as far as temperatures are concerned, at least what we found in Marion County was everything that was projected from, and this is me hearing from my Master Gardener volunteers, and then also just in the area where we were having our spring festival that had a lot of crazy weather, but it was actually a few degrees warmer. We had about 60 vendors out that were very concerned because they set up Friday night, and then here we are Saturday, and there's supposed to be this freeze, and all their plants are set out at our festival, and they were all concerned about what to do. And thankfully, we didn't have it get as cold. And I actually live in Gainesville, and what it projected here, I was that person who trimmed all of my yard the weekend before because the Farmer's Almanac said March 5th. And I had a feeling not to do it because the same thing happened last year, but I was busy the next 6 weekends, so I knew I wouldn't get to it. So I did so, and I kid you not, on Saturday night after the festival, I was at home out in my backyard finding every towel and blanket I could in my house to cover up my whole backyard. And it only got down to 35 in my yard, and it was projected to get to 31. Oh. So I was
like
very happy about that.
Yeah.
So
yeah, all those little sweet little babies trying to come up, I was running around. I didn't cover anything all winter.
Yeah.
With everything trying to come up. Oh, the Chickasaw Plum that I got from you.
Mm-hmm.
I planted it. You said to go ahead and plant it, and then it's just a stick. It had one itsy bitsy tiny little leaf on it, so I had covered it all up.
No, it's native.
Too.
It'll deal with the cold.
I know it's native, but it's an infant.
It's a baby.
Yes.
And Monique makes a very good point when we were talking about compost. She said she's still in the process of using compost on her lawn. Where she's already used it is greening up nicely. Mm-hmm. Very good point. A lot of research is finding that if you spread or top dress compost on your lawn, it's a very, very, very beneficial because it helps to build up the soil, gives it a little shot of nutrients. If your lawn is growing in a pure sand location, and a lot of subdivisions and newer construction, what is underneath your lawn is just fill dirt that came from who knows where. Dump trucks brought it from
completely sterile
somewhere in Florida down the road.
Well, probably where they built a DRA, a drainage retention area, but that's why it's orange, because it's our topsoil is so narrow, anyway. So yeah, they put this fill dirt all over the area where they're going to build your house, and then throw down sod on it and say grow. Throw down queen palms and Robolini palms and say grow. So the ideal situation is to put a compost product down before you put your lawn down. Have you been to On Top of the World yet?
Oh yes.
Yes, where Dr. Eben Dean has run all those experiments and stuff where they've done that. That's the ideal. But if you didn't have that done, top dressing with compost, it's hard to make enough compost in our home compost bins to top dress your lawn. But I did it last June or so with just black cow, and I think it really did help. It helped all those weeds and the Bahia grass in my yard. So, or a mushroom compost, or the product I know that they're using at On Top of the World. That's so hard to say. It's a product out of Sumterville, isn't it? Called Command.
Yeah.
With one M. And it's
I'm not really familiar with what they're using. Amanda Merrick is our FFL agent in Marion County, and she's at On Top of the World weekly. But yeah, I'm not too familiar with them and how I've heard a lot about their water usage there for their grass. But
villages or yes.
If we have a neighborhood here, we have the same issues. I'm going to be out there on Monday helping to check their irrigation.
Yeah, we surprised with them. Amanda just got a letter from the contractor who normally builds the homes there, and they build them for On Top of the World, Stone Creek, Del Webb, all these really big primarily retirement communities essentially. And and they recently just made it to where all new constructed homes have to be 80% compliant with what's it called, a Water Star, or you know what I'm talking about? Yes. Yeah. So it was a really big, and it all really came from this whole FFL program she had been doing out there, and then some random residents who created a water conservation program. It started with like 5 people, And now they're moving in a better direction with that. So it's really nice. We're happy to hear.
Yeah, the water starting program is through the water management districts. So that's fantastic. And I know though, Marion County, you're kind of split in your water management districts, right? So
yeah. From what I understand, we do have a water agent in the office as well. So he's been doing a lot with Amanda, working with that. So, but
yeah, but part of you is St. John's and part of you is something else. Yeah, it has to be a lot of cooperation there, but that's fantastic.
Yeah, they're doing great things. So
we need to start saving the water if we're going to keep having, all the people move here. We just can't.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Everyone wants development to stop as soon as their house is built. So,
right.
If we want to be here, we have to understand other people want to be here too, but we just have to use our resources.
Mm-hmm.
And PJ made mention of she needs evergreens in her area. There are a lot of different evergreens that you could go out and purchase and grow. Southern red cedar is native and is probably going to do the very best.
It's going to get really big though.
Because you live in Marion County, maybe other evergreens do a little bit better up there. Here in Hernando County, Southern red cedars are the only ones that do long-term really well. Arizona, Cyprus. Okay, think about that. We're in Florida. Is Florida anything like Arizona?
My yard is
hot, sandy out there. It's very sunny and dry. What do we have a lot of here in the summer?
Rain.
Rain, very good. Lots and lots of rain. So we see a lot of evergreens die from root rots and problems like that.
I'm glad we're not near my house because I don't want my Arizona cypress to hear you.
Yeah,
it's doing fabulous. It was a Christmas tree.
Sure, and they can do well for a number of years, but then all of a sudden they're going to boom, die very quickly. And you're not going to know why, and you're going to send me a picture, and it's probably from some kind of root rot. They usually die during the summer or late summer from too much water and root problems.
The Christmas tree farm named it a Carolina Sapphire.
Oh,
it's like that was its brand name or something, but it's definitely an Arizona cypress.
Since we were talking about the cold, Care Mom 4 says that her hibiscus comes back after freezing. I have a hibiscus. And it's right up against the front wall of the house. And I lose a few leaves, and that's about it.
These are near the pool, so maybe they got some radiant heat from the pool. But they're young, so that's my only concern with them.
And Bonnie, you asked about the fertilizer questions. You're very welcome. I'm going to show all of our emails at the end. If you need to email any of us with a specific plant fertilizer recommendations, we could do that, but it's really plant specific. PJ says, I warn that it might freeze into April. Well, sure, it might.
Especially
it probably won't.
But up there it could.
In Marion County, there's a greater chance that it might. Generally by anywhere between early March and the end of March, and depending on how much of a gambler you are, you're safe to prune.
I can't handle a Saturday at my house, beautiful sunny this time of year without pruning. So, I know if I can't, you can't either. Just know you're taking a risk. What are we looking up now?
Let me see. Here we go. Here, I'm going to drop a link into the chat. And Lily, what does this link go to?
It goes to the electronic digital information system at the University of Florida. Or you can also look up Ask IFAS.
Yeah, they just changed their name to Ask IFAS.
Yes. That is, you know what I do when I choose a particular subject? Hibiscus. Hibiscus UF. Hibiscus IFAS, one of those things, Institute of Food and Agricultural Sciences. That is going to give you every publication, every blog, everything that the University of Florida has written about hibiscus, which is better than your neighborhood group talking about hibiscus or your barber talking about hibiscus. So That is definitely the way to go. Yeah, the IFAS, Institute of Food and Agricultural Science. I explained to everybody, wherever you came from, what other state, that was just called the College of Agriculture. That's what that means. So,
got a question here from Corey for Jeremy. So, Jeremy, what's your area of specialty?
So, believe it or not, the past 10 years, I have worked for Marion County Public Schools, not only as an agri-science teacher in horticulture, and did everything from FNGLA, Florida Nursery Growers and Landscaping Association, to farm to school. But my primary job in doing that was farm to school. So I worked at Vanguard High School, where we have the state's largest school greenhouse, and it's all hydroponic based. There's about 14 different types of hydroponic systems there. And so for the past 2.5 years, I actually moved up to the district level of the school district, and I was the countywide horticulture program specialist for all 52 schools in Marion County. And so my primary background, I would say, is hydroponics. I've been doing hydroponics.
Corey's going to love you.
Kind of on a larger scale.
A lot of interest in hydroponics.
Yeah, hydroponics are a lot of fun. And we've been doing that for about 7 years in Marion County. The greenhouse at Vanguard is almost 6,000 square feet. So we had everything from vertigo towers to Beto bucket or Dutch bucket systems to nutrient film technique, floating beds, microgreens, a little bit of everything. So we've been growing for a while. And then we expanded that into 3 other high schools, where each of those schools are growing about 200 heads of lettuce per week for the cafeteria. And then also growing everything from peppers and zucchini, squash, cucumbers, beans, all sorts of greens, broccoli, cauliflower, you name it, pretty much they're growing it and putting it into school cafeterias or sending it out into the community for food. So my background is primarily hydroponics with a little bit in environmental horticulture or ornamental horticulture. And then also doing raised beds and vegetable gardens as well. In all of our elementary programs, we did raised beds at all 31 elementary schools, and square foot gardening specifically. And then also in our middle school programs, we did the hydroponic and raised bed and in-ground gardening, which we called those our horticulture parks. So that's where we try to expose as many of those kids to growing their own produce, to develop that passion of wanting to do it on their own. So when they go into the high school programs, they would take those classes to run the greenhouses for the farm to school programs. Yep. So to answer your question, hydroponics are probably my biggest areas of expertise.
Or edibles, yes.
Or edibles, yes.
That's why he's a master gardener coordinator as well, because he's used to, coordinating kids. So
yeah. And I was the FFA advisor for a long time as well. So I worked with a lot of parents and students. So it's come to find out it works out really well for me with master gardeners as well. So it's fun.
Okay, we need to wrap it up here shortly. So let me just try to knock out a couple more quick questions here. PJ, you asked about tobacco tea for a pesticide. Don't do it. That used to be a pesticide, nicotine sulfate, and it was taken off the market 20, 30 years ago, something like that. Very, and it wasn't because it was really terribly dangerous for the environment, really dangerous for the people who were actually applying it. So that kind of falls under old wives' tale or old farmers' tale or old tales. So you really don't want to do that because it's very dangerous and not safe. PJ says compost tea is great for container gardening. If you make it correctly, yes, compost tea is great for container gardening. Can be used in hydroponics, but you're going to have to be really, really careful that you manage it correctly. Right. Otherwise, things are going to end up really nasty. I guess that's the technical term for it.
Have you done aquaponics, Jeremy?
We have not done aquaponics for a while. It was actually against national farm to school regulations to provide any food that has been fertilized in any way with animal waste, including fish. That has since changed about a year or two ago. So.
See, we almost got through without mentioning poop.
Yeah. For some reason, the topic of poop always comes up in the clinics. So, but yeah, Corey points out that when you're looking up information on that compost tea, it has to be aerobic. or well oxygenated. So it usually requires a little aquarium pump, the little pump to pump air into your bucket of water to keep oxygen in the water, to be raising good bacteria and not nasty septic tank kind of bacteria.
Mine became anaerobic and gross. That is true.
Yes.
I did it all wrong.
And oh my gosh, you guys are vocal today.
Great.
Lee mentions that she has Aranos mites on her lychee trees. So, Jeremy, lychee trees are probably something that you've never had to work with and probably won't. They do have a new invasive mite pest, Aranos mites on them. And I'm pretty sure I sent Lee some information on that.
So, yeah.
Obviously, we don't, people can grow lychees. There are people in the Orlando area, Kissimmee area, Polk County area. So really just south of you and I, you can grow lychees. So if I ever get to it, I'm going to order a lychee tree and stick it in my backyard, maybe even the front yard. I'm going to give it a try because you can successfully grow them almost this far north. Here, it's going to be a little touch and go, kind of. Okay, I think Corey wants to email you some questions. So we'll go ahead and show your email in just a moment. Let me finish up with these. Corey, we'll go ahead and Jeremy will give his email address.
Rhoden,
yeah.
UFL.edu.
Bassem, you're very welcome. And Lee, see, I remember sending you some information on it. So, Jeremy, what's your email?
It is my first name, Jeremy, Jeremy, .k .Rhoden, Rhoden, at UFL.edu.
They're getting fancy with their emails now.
It's one of those 2.1s, in the beginning.
As long as mine. Yeah.
Does it look like that?
It looks like that.
Okay, there's Jeremy's email if you guys want to email any questions to him, and we'll definitely have to have him back on here again sometime. I know my email is back on here. For some reason, it disappeared. I had to put it back in.
You got to show up to your own program sometimes.
Yeah, over the last month or so, there's been a lot of, I had to go to a conference. I had to help run a conference. I've been kind of missing in action for a number of Thursdays, and Lily's been filling in.
And Bernie.
And Bernie, see, we even have one of our master gardeners who co-stars with Lily when I'm not here to answer questions.
Because he's here on Thursdays for our physical, come in and talk to him plant clinic anyway. So I just kind of crashed the clinic, and Bernie has a great time doing this too.
So see, don't be afraid to involve master gardeners in technology. All it takes is you just get one of the clip-on cameras and put it on top of the computer monitor and say, smile. And here's Lily's very lengthy email address. You can see that she works for the county and not for University of Florida. And let's double check to see. Cindy, you are very welcome. Thank you so much for tuning in on such a regular basis. And thank all of you for tuning in. We couldn't do it without you. No. We probably get really, really bored without you.
Talking to ourselves.
Yes. We might record it, but yeah, it just gets discouraging if people don't ask questions. And when you do ask questions, don't be afraid to ask questions. And like I always tell people, there's no such thing as too many questions or too many pictures. So don't be afraid to email me pictures in advance, or when we're on the plant clinic, I can screen share them. And this way, I think everybody who watches learns something new. I know I learn something every week.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. Yes.
Or something I never really thought of before. don't think we ended up with any really super unusual questions today. We did have the topic of poop that came up again. So.
Always does.
Always does. And Lee, thank you so much for tuning in from beautiful South Florida down in Broward County. And I don't see any other comments. And we're a few minutes over. So everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. Oh my gosh, let me double check my calendar. Are we supposed to be here next week? Oh yes, we will be here next week. I have nothing on my schedule for next Thursday except for this. I'm sure that's going to change really quick, but it looks good for right now. So thanks again, everybody. We'll be back here again next Thursday at 10 a.m. So please tune in. My regular co-host, Lily, will be here, either in person or on her own little square, like Hollywood Square.
I like to come in person. Yes, I brought you gifts. I brought you gifts this time.
Yeah, you brought me books and everything.
Florida friendly, the plant guides, they're running out, so I brought him some. So come by here if you want one.
Exactly. Thanks again, guys, and everybody have a wonderful week. We'll see you back here again next Thursday. Jeremy, hold on for just a second.